Under the scorching summer sun of San Diego, Olivia Brooks believed she had rescued a tiny, helpless German shepherd from the edge of death. But within weeks, the little pup grew at a speed no ordinary dog ever could. Its body stretching, its eyes sharpening, its presence shifting into something powerful. Neighbors whispered, watching in fear as nighttime howls echoed from her mansion. Howls that didn't sound like a puppy at all, but like something wild waking beneath the summer heat. Finally, Olivia took the creature to the vet. The moment he touched it, his face turned ghost white, his hands trembling as he stepped back. "Olivia," he whispered, barely able to speak. "Whatever this is, it's not a dog." From that moment on, the woman in red stepped into a truth no one could prepare for, one that would test courage, loyalty, and the limits of what love can tame. If you want to see what happens next, be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss the journey ahead. San Diego in midsummer was the kind of heat that seemed to melt the horizon, turning the air into wavering glass and washing the city in a blinding haze. The wealthy hillside district overlooking the Pacific shimmered under the relentless sun, where modern villas with white stone walls and reflective glass windows stood like quiet guardians over the coastline. Cars glinted like moving flames along the boulevard, and even the palm trees drooped, their long fronds heavy beneath the scorching afternoon. It was the kind of day when most people hid inside air-conditioned mansions, nursing iced drinks and waiting for the heat to die with the sun. But Olivia Brooks was not most people. Olivia, only 29, yet already known as one of the youngest self-made millionaires in Southern California, stepped out of her crimson convertible with the ease of someone born into luxury, even though she'd earned every cent herself. She was tall, with a sculpted frame that carried natural confidence. Her long black hair fell in smooth waves past her shoulders, and her skin had a warm golden hue from years under the Pacific sun. Her signature was unmistakable, a fitted red dress that draped elegantly over her figure, paired with delicate gold earrings and heels that clicked sharply against the pavement. She gave off an aura that made people stop, not only because of her beauty, but because she looked like a woman who had fought to build her place in the world and had no intention of ever stepping back. Yet beneath that polish was a woman shaped by a childhood of instability. She'd grown up in foster homes, rarely staying long enough to form lasting connections. That past, though invisible beneath her glamorous exterior, lived quietly in the way she paid attention to small things others overlooked, the way she softened around anything fragile. Perhaps that was why, despite the heat, she paused when she heard it. A faint, trembling whimper from somewhere near the row of polished trash bins outside a boutique. Olivia turned, her brows narrowing. The sound came again. Thin, shaky, like something very small trying not to disappear. She walked toward the alley, the sun igniting her dress into a spark of red. As she approached, she spotted a movement beneath a metal trash container. Kneeling, careful not to snag her dress, she lowered herself to the ground. There, pressed against the blistering concrete, was a tiny German shepherd puppy. Its fur was black with faint tan markings beginning to show near its paws, though patchy in some places, as if hunger had stolen its shine. Its ribs were visible beneath its thin frame, quivering with every weak breath. The puppy's eyes were what caught her most. Large, dark brown, wide with fear, but also filled with a pleading depth that pierced straight through her. This was not just a puppy abandoned. It was a creature who had already known too much of the world's cruelty. As Olivia reached out her hand, the pup didn't shrink away. Instead, with a trembling effort, it lifted its head and touched its nose gently against her fingers. That small gesture, soft, desperate, trusting, made something inside Olivia collapse. She remembered being small once too, wishing someone would choose her, wishing someone would show she wasn't alone. She blinked away the sudden sting of emotion and slid her other hand under the frail body. A boutique worker named Sarah, who had been sweeping the sidewalk nearby, peeked over with mild curiosity. Sarah was a middle-aged woman with sandy brown hair pulled into a low bun, freckles dusting her nose, and tired but kind eyes that hinted at a life of steady, unglamorous work. "Poor little thing," she murmured, leaning on her broom. "Been hearing it cry since morning. Thought the heat would do it in." She wasn't cruel, just resigned, the way people become when they've seen too many stray animals left behind in a city that moves too fast. Olivia wrapped the puppy carefully in a silk red scarf she had pulled from her handbag. "Not today," she said firmly, her voice low but steady. "Not while I'm here." The pup let out a tiny sound, half whimper, half sigh, as though the warmth of the scarf was the first comfort it had felt in days. Olivia lifted it close to her, feeling its trembling soften against her chest. For a moment she stood there, the sun blazing overhead, the world buzzing faintly with the heat, and she stared at the fragile life she now held. Something shifted inside her. Not dramatic, not loud, just a quiet certainty that this was no accident. Fate had placed this little creature in her path, and she wasn't the type to ignore fate. She thanked Sarah with a nod and walked toward her car. Even the leather seats, scorching from the sun, didn't deter her as she settled into the driver's seat. The puppy nestled deeper into the scarf, eyes fluttering shut. "You're safe now, little one," she whispered, starting the engine. As the crimson convertible pulled away and merged into the shimmering summer traffic, the puppy blinked weakly in her arms. For a split second, its tiny eyes reflected a glint, something bright, something knowing, something that didn't belong to a helpless newborn. But Olivia, focused on getting home quickly, didn't see it. The city blurred past, the heat shimmered, and in her embrace the small creature exhaled, its gaze shifting toward the window, where sunlight carved a thin, wild spark in its eyes, an echo of something far from ordinary. The weeks that followed moved with an uncanny speed, as if time itself bent around the small creature Olivia had brought home from the scorching streets of San Diego. Hunter, that was the name she finally chose, fit him perfectly. Short, strong, easy to call, the kind of name that sounded as though it belonged to something destined for power. At first he was fragile, trembling in her arms, sleeping for hours beside the large window overlooking the glittering coast. But under Olivia's care, something changed. Hunter recovered so quickly it bordered on astonishing. His once bony frame filled out in days rather than weeks, his appetite enormous yet precise. Olivia, who had grown up surviving unpredictability, recognized resilience when she saw it, but even she had never seen an animal rebound with such relentless force. Her home, a modern hillside estate of pale stone and dark wood, soon filled with the soft patter of paws racing across the marble floors. Hunter explored every corner, nose to the ground, tail low and focused. He didn't behave like a typical puppy, no clumsy tumbles, no timid cowering. Instead, he moved with a strange maturity, almost as if he already understood the wideness of the world and his place within it. Olivia admired him, laughed at his bursts of energy, and felt the quiet warmth of companionship grow in a way she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years. It was one particular afternoon, the sun burning so fiercely that every palm leaf outside cast a sharp, motionless shadow, that Olivia first noticed something unusual. She had been preparing Hunter's meal, lean chicken and rice, when she realized he already stood nearly twice the size he had been the week before. His shoulders were broadening at a pace that defied normal growth. His fur had thickened into a luxurious black coat with deep amber undertones. His eyes, once round and childlike, had narrowed into sharp, intelligent shapes that seemed to assess everything with uncanny clarity. She crouched in front of him, placing her hand along his back. He was strong, too strong for a puppy his age. "What are you becoming, little guy?" she murmured, half amused, half unsettled. Hunter simply stared at her, head tilted, as though he understood every word but chose not to answer. When Olivia took him outside for walks around her neighborhood, the comments began. Some from curiosity, others from fear. One of the neighbors, Mr. Harrison, an older man with graying temples and a narrow frame, paused while trimming his hedges. He was known for being stern and meticulous, shaped by decades as a retired military officer, a man who saw danger before comfort, caution before kindness. When Hunter passed, Mr. Harrison lowered his shears slowly. "That's a big shepherd for his age," he remarked, his voice rumbling and edged with old habit. "Growing like that doesn't seem natural." His icy blue eyes narrowed, analyzing the creature's posture with the Watson, same scrutiny he once used on new recruits. Olivia forced a polite smile, waving off the odd tension. "He's just healthy," she said. But even as she said it, she felt the thin thread of doubt tighten in her chest. Other neighbors whispered behind their fences, their silhouettes flickering through the slats like shadows of suspicion. Some stared openly as Olivia walked by, their gazes drifting from her elegant red dress to Hunter's massive paws that crushed the gravel beneath him. But it was the nights that changed everything. The kind of humid summer nights when the heat didn't lessen, even after the sun dipped below the ocean, when the air felt thick enough to hold sound. One such night, Olivia sat on her patio, sipping iced tea and scrolling through emails, the faint scent of jasmine drifting from the garden. Hunter lay at her feet at first, then suddenly stood, ears pricking sharply. His body stiffened, tail low but alert, eyes locked on the darkness beyond the backyard. Olivia felt him move before she even looked up. "Hunter? What is it?" she whispered, but there was no response. Only the stillness of a creature listening to something no human ear could detect. Then came the sound. A long, trembling howl, deep, haunting, unlike anything Olivia had heard from a domestic animal. It rippled through the summer air, vibrating against the house walls, echoing across the hillside. It was not a bark, not a whine. It was wild, ancient, a call that did not belong to the quiet suburbs, but to forests, mountains, and forgotten wilderness. Olivia froze, the glass in her hand trembling. Hunter's head lifted fully to the sky, his posture regal and tense, as if answering some invisible force pulling him from afar. Fear and fascination struck her at once. She stood slowly, her red dress fluttering in the hot breeze as she stepped closer. "Hunter," she breathed, "stop, please." But the howl only deepened, stretching into a note that sent shivers through her spine. Her phone vibrated violently on the patio table, the caller ID glowing with the name Dr. Michael Keene, the veterinarian she trusted most. Michael was a man in his late 40s, tall with a rugged build softened by years of gentle work. His sandy brown beard was trimmed but carried streaks of silver, and his eyes, earthy hazel, held the warmth of someone who had once lost a family pet as a child and vowed never to let another creature suffer without fighting for it. He was known for his patience, kindness, and an instinctive concern for anything out of the ordinary. When Olivia answered, his tone was urgent, sharper than she had ever heard. "Olivia, I reviewed the growth data you sent me," he said, breath tight. "Hunter's development isn't normal, not even close. Bring him in first thing tomorrow morning. Don't delay." Olivia swallowed hard, heart pounding. Before she could respond, another howl erupted behind her, longer, deeper, stretching into the night like a forgotten song only Hunter remembered. And the entire hillside seemed to fall silent, holding its breath, waiting for what would come next. The next morning, San Diego's heat rolled in early, thick and shimmering like a veil over the hillside roads. Olivia drove Hunter to the clinic with her hands tight on the steering wheel, the red silk of her dress gathering beneath her elbows as she leaned forward, tense and silent. Hunter sat in the passenger seat, not curled up like a normal puppy, but upright, alert, watching the passing world with eyes too sharp for his age. His black coat had grown sleek and full, catching the light like polished obsidian. Every now and then, he turned his head toward Olivia, as if sensing her worry, but his posture remained composed, almost regal. It was both comforting and unsettling. The vet clinic stood tucked between tall palm trees, its cream-colored walls reflecting harsh beams of sun. Inside, the air conditioning hummed softly, carrying the clean scent of disinfectant and eucalyptus. At the reception desk sat Lila Torres, a young veterinary assistant with honey-brown skin, a dusting of freckles along her cheeks, and curls piled messily on top of her head. She had a warm smile, the kind that softened nervous animals and anxious owners alike. "Morning, Miss Brooks," she greeted, though her eyes widened when she saw Hunter step in, towering, confident, far larger than he had been at his last visit. She swallowed. Wow, he grew fast. Lila wasn't easily startled. Growing up with rescue animals and working long hours at the clinic had given her the kind of calm patience that felt like a gentle blanket in stressful moments. But even she stiffened as Hunter walked past, as though she sensed the same undercurrent of wildness Olivia had begun to fear. Dr. Michael Keene met them in exam room 2, the same room where he'd once welcomed them with an easy smile and relaxed posture. Today, however, his shoulders held a tightness that hadn't been there before. He motioned for them to enter, adjusting his glasses with fingers that trembled faintly. The lines around his hazel eyes seemed deeper than usual, a sign of a man who had spent the night worrying about the unknown. Hunter stepped onto the elevated table without being asked, staring directly into Michael's face as though challenging him. The vet inhaled slowly, then began his examination. He checked Hunter's jawline, thicker and more pronounced than any young shepherd's should be. His hands traced the spine, long, sturdy, unnaturally developed. He examined the eyes, deep brown but carrying a glint, a strange depth that belonged not to a domestic breed, but to something ancient. Michael's assistant, a young man named Evan with lean arms and short blonde hair, entered with a clipboard. Evan was normally chatty, with a boyish grin that suggested he'd only recently transitioned from college intern to clinic employee. But when Hunter lifted his head and stared at him, that grin vanished. Evan froze in place, Adam's apple bobbing as he whispered, "He looks older than he is." His voice cracked with genuine unease. Michael didn't reply. Instead, he picked up his flashlight, guiding the beam along Hunter's pupils, watching them contract with unnerving precision. He checked Hunter's teeth, sharper than he remembered. He listened to his heartbeat. Steady, strong, too strong. Finally, he stepped back, the color draining from his face. Olivia's pulse spiked. "Michael, what is it?" she asked, her voice thin but steady. The vet rubbed his forehead, then spoke quietly, as if saying it too loudly might summon something he didn't fully understand. "Olivia, Hunter isn't a pure shepherd. Not even close." He swallowed. "His bone structure, his instincts, the vocalizations you described." His hazel eyes lifted to hers, filled with reluctant certainty. "He shows traits consistent with something wild, possibly wolf ancestry, something rare." Olivia's breath caught. She stared at Hunter, her Hunter, standing proudly on the exam table as though he already knew the verdict. "But he's been gentle," she said fiercely. "He's never hurt anyone." Michael nodded. "I believe that. But the law doesn't always care about behavior. If he's classified as wolf hybrid, he may be subject to restrictions." Olivia felt the world tilt. A tightness spread down her spine. She reached out, resting her hand on Hunter's head. He leaned into her touch, warm and calm, as though grounding her. Outside the exam room, whispers spread quickly. Two women in the waiting area, one in fitness leggings, the other pushing a stroller, stared as Hunter passed. Their voices dropped to hushed tones, but the words still carried. "That thing is huge. I heard some shepherd-wolf mixes can be dangerous. Why would she keep something like that?" Olivia ignored them, lifting her chin. But as she guided Hunter outside, she noticed people pause along the walkway, giving her and the growing creature wide berth. Fear moved faster than truth, and with each passing minute, rumor spiraled into something sharper. By the time Olivia reached her street, the whispers had fully arrived. A luxury SUV slowed in front of her driveway. Behind the tinted window, Mrs. Caldwell, a neighbor with platinum hair styled like a movie star from the 50s, and a habit of making drama wherever she saw the slightest excuse, watched Hunter with theatrical alarm. Her thin lips parted. "Good heavens," she gasped loud enough for Olivia to hear. "She's kept a predator." Children who normally rode bicycles along the sidewalks stopped and backed away. A boy clutched his mother's arm, whispering, "Mom, is that a wolf?" Olivia's jaw tightened. The sun bathed her red dress in a hot glow as she reached her property, Hunter at her side. She expected only silence, but instead found a white pickup truck parked just outside her wrought iron gate. Its door bore the blue emblem of animal control. Two officers stepped out. The first was a tall man with square shoulders and a trimmed salt and pepper beard. His badge read Officer Grant Turner. He had a steady, solid presence, someone who had spent years doing difficult jobs without flinching. His partner, a shorter woman with sharp cheekbones and dark hair tied tightly back, stood beside him. Her name tag said Officer Dana Cho, and her alert eyes missed nothing. She moved with the efficient precision of someone trained to expect trouble. Both officers approached with cautious professionalism. "Ms. Brooks," Officer Turner began, his voice polite but firm, "we've received reports of a possible wolf hybrid on your property." Olivia stepped forward instinctively, positioning herself in front of Hunter. "He's a shepherd mix," she countered, calm but fiery. "He's not dangerous." "We need to verify that," Officer Cho added, hands clasped behind her back. "If the animal is confirmed to be part wolf, regulations require evaluation and possible relocation." A sharp silence fell. Hunter stood behind her, posture rigid, eyes narrowed, not aggressive, but aware. The late afternoon sun cast long golden beams across the driveway, illuminating the tension like a spotlight. "I'm not handing him over," Olivia said, her voice trembling only with determination. Behind her, Hunter's deep gaze flicked toward the officers, watchful, awakening, as though something ancient stirred beneath his calm surface. The hillside seemed to hold its breath. The Santa Ana winds arrived just after sundown, rolling across San Diego like a furnace opening its jaws. The heat was unnatural for the hour, heavy, electric, humming with a strange tension that made even the cicadas fall silent. Olivia stood on her terrace overlooking the hillside, the air so dry it seemed to crackle against her skin. Her red dress clung to her lightly in the warm breeze as she watched the clouds gather, thick, bruised, and swollen with the promise of something violent. Hunter stood beside her, his black coat bristling, golden-brown eyes fixed on the dark horizon. He had grown broader still since the last examination, muscles rippling beneath his fur, chest rising and falling with a steady rhythm that felt older than time. He watched the sky the way wolves watched storms in deep forests they once ruled. The first crack of thunder split the sky with a jagged flash, illuminating the valley for a heartbeat. Olivia startled, but Hunter didn't flinch. His ears pricked, his stance tightened as though he recognized something in the storm, something familiar. The second strike came without warning, a violent streak of white that plunged straight into the dry hillside brush behind her estate. It was instant. A bloom of orange ignited, small at first, then roaring to life as wind fed its hungry core. Olivia gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. The flames spread with terrifying speed, leaping from bush to bush, consuming the brittle vegetation like paper. The crackling grew louder. Smoke, thick and choking, rolled upward into the night sky, turning everything red and black. The alarm system in her neighborhood began blaring, a long, wavering siren that signaled imminent danger. Hunter growled, low and instinctive, already understanding the threat before she could speak. Olivia dashed into the house, shouting for her neighbors. She grabbed her phone, called out to anyone nearby, and raced across her lawn, the scent of burning brush invading every breath. She pounded on the nearest door, Mr. Harrison's home. He opened it with a start, his weathered face stark with alarm. The old military sharpness returned to his gray-blue eyes. "Fire!" Olivia gasped. "We need to evacuate." Harrison nodded, instantly slipping into a controlled efficiency shaped by decades of training. "Go alert the Caldwells," he barked. "I'll help others." Olivia ran, her heels scraping the pavement, her red dress whipping around her legs as she sprinted toward the neighboring houses. Mrs. Caldwell emerged onto her porch, chiaroscuro shadows from the fire flickering across her platinum hair. Her painted lips trembled. "Oh, my lord. Olivia, what do we do?" "We leave," Olivia urged, guiding her toward the driveway. But as the fire spread, hot embers rained like shooting sparks onto her property and others nearby. The heat pressed against her like a living thing. She smelled wood burning, then something worse, something structural. Behind her, a deafening crack echoed through the valley. Olivia turned just in time to see a section of her own home's outer wall, already licked by flames, begin to crumble. Her heart lurched, She tried to step back, but the ground beneath her was slick with falling ash. She slipped. Her balance vanished. "Olivia!" Harrison shouted from somewhere behind her. But before gravity claimed her, a blur of black fur surged from the darkness. Hunter lunged forward, launching his massive body into hers, knocking her out of the wall's collapsing path. The structure crashed down where she had stood a second before, sending up a burst of burning splinters. Olivia hit the ground hard, coughing, chest heaving, eyes stinging from smoke. When her vision cleared, she saw Hunter standing over her, his body shield-like, his throat rumbling with protective fury. For a moment, her heartbeat froze. He wasn't just reacting. He had calculated, chosen, saved her with purpose. But Hunter didn't stay by her side for long. As soon as she managed to sit up, he bolted. Not away, but toward the Caldwell residence. The gates were locked, the family screaming from inside as smoke enveloped the backyard. Hunter rammed the metal gate with full force. Once, twice. The hinges warped. A third strike shattered it open. He charged inside, barking fiercely, more a command than a cry. The Caldwells stumbled out moments later, coughing but alive. "This way!" Olivia shouted, ushering them to the evacuation line. People gathered at the bottom of the hill murmured in awe. They had seen. Hunter was saving them one by one. Fire crews arrived, water cannons roaring. Hours felt like days as the flames battled against firefighters and wind. By the time dawn arrived, exhaustion clung to everyone like a second skin. Smoke lingered in the air, drifting through the hollow quiet that followed catastrophe. But the homes, though scarred, still stood. And no one had died. Not one. Word spread faster than the flames ever had. Hunter saved the hill. Hunter saved us. Even Officer Turner and Officer Cho, who had watched the rescue with stunned disbelief, seemed momentarily softened. Turner wiped sweat and soot from his brow, staring at Hunter with new respect. "Damn brave animal," he muttered. Cho nodded slowly, but her expression remained tight, conflicted, torn between duty and what she had just witnessed. Then the radio crackled in their truck, snapping their attention back to regulation. Both officers straightened, exchanging resigned glances. Turner approached Olivia, hat in hand, sorrow in his eyes. "Ms. Brooks," he began, voice heavy, "we saw what he did. We saw all of it." Olivia clutched Hunter, her arms trembling, his fur dusted with ash. "Then you know he's not a danger," she argued, tears burning in her smoke-reddened eyes. "He saved everyone here." Turner hesitated, looking at Hunter again, this time with something like admiration mixed with dread. "But the law," he exhaled sharply. "The law doesn't make exceptions. Wolf hybrids cannot remain in residential zones. Hunter has to come with us." The back of their truck opened. A metal containment cage slid out with a harsh metallic scrape. The sound sliced the quiet like a blade. Olivia took a step back, pulling Hunter behind her. Her red dress, once vibrant, was now stained with soot and ash. But the fire in her eyes burned brighter than the one that had ravaged the hillside. Everyone watched. Neighbors, firefighters, even the officers themselves seemed to freeze, breath held tight in their chests. The cage door clanged open, and the world waited to see if Olivia Brooks would surrender the creature who had saved them all, or stand against the city that wanted to take him from her. Morning came softly over San Diego. The sky washed in gentle hues of rose and gold, as if the city were trying to wipe away the soot and fear left from the night before. Olivia stepped outside her house. now scarred with smoke, scorch marks still clinging to the stucco walls, and exhaled slowly. The cool breeze carried the faint scent of ocean salt, a soothing contrast to the acrid memory of flames. Her red dress fluttered lightly, no longer stained with ash after a restless night spent cleaning. And beside her, towering and vigilant, stood Hunter, his thick black coat still bearing hints of soot at the tips despite Olivia brushing him for hours. He stood tall, chest broad, head held high, as though he knew the city was waking up to his story. It didn't take long. By 8:30, the entire neighborhood was buzzing. Cars slowed near her home, drivers lowering their windows to catch a glimpse. Children in colorful helmets balanced on bicycles at the edge of her driveway, whispering excitedly. Phones were raised. Murmurs filled the air. It was only when Olivia's phone vibrated non-stop that she realized something huge had happened online. Social media had exploded overnight. Dozens of neighbors had uploaded footage from home security cameras. Hunter ramming the burning gate. Hunter leading a family out of their collapsing backyard. Hunter standing between falling debris and Olivia. The clips flooded every feed: Instagram, Twitter, local news sites. Some slowed the footage dramatically, captioned with bold, breathless text, "The hero of San Diego hillside." Reporters began to gather. A local journalist, Ethan Price, arrived first. Ethan was tall and lean, maybe mid-30s, with sandy hair swept back in a style that made him look both casual and polished. His square jaw and dark stubble gave him a rugged edge that contrasted with the gentle curiosity in his hazel eyes. He was known for humane storytelling, profiles of ordinary people who did extraordinary things. Olivia had seen his work. He approached with cautious respect, a notebook in hand, wearing a navy button-down rolled at the sleeves, revealing arms tanned from days spent reporting outdoors. "Ms. Brooks," he greeted softly, "I saw the footage. Everyone did. Your companion saved lives last night." His gaze drifted to Hunter, who stared right back at him, ears perked, posture disciplined. Ethan blinked, lowering his voice. "He's remarkable." "He is," Olivia said, resting her hand on Hunter's back. "And he's family." Ethan asked if he could interview her for the evening news. She hesitated, but the glimmer of hope in his expression, not sensationalism but genuine admiration, made her nod. Hunter stood beside her during the interview, silent, composed, almost regal. Ethan didn't press for drama. Instead, he asked how Hunter had come into her life, what she had seen in him that day under the trash bin, and how he had risked everything to save the neighborhood. Olivia's voice wavered only once, when describing the moment Hunter pushed her out of the collapsing wall's path. Ethan didn't interrupt. He simply listened, head slightly bowed, pen resting against his notebook. By mid-afternoon, the city council had convened what they called an emergency community safety meeting. People gathered in the recreation center, a long, white-walled hall with rows of foldable chairs. The crowd was a mix of fear, curiosity, and awe. Some residents still wore soot-stained clothes from the night before. Hunter stayed by Olivia's side, leash held loosely though unnecessary. He never left her. Among the council members stood Councilwoman Marjorie Hensley, a woman in her late 50s with steel-gray hair styled into a neat bob. Her posture straight, her dark blazer pressed crisply. She had the sharp eyes of someone who had spent decades making decisions under public scrutiny. Though stern by reputation, today her expression was softened by genuine concern. She opened the meeting with calm authority. We are here to discuss the classification and future of the animal known as Hunter Brooks, she announced. Gasps spread. Some residents shifted uncomfortably, but before any fear could fester, a firefighter stood up. It was Captain Ross Delgado, the man who had coordinated the emergency response the night before. He was in his early 40s, stocky and strong, with a squared jawline and dark hair buzzed close to the scalp. Soot still stained his boots. His deep voice carried across the hall like a steady drum. "I want it on record," he said, "that if not for that animal, we'd be counting casualties today." He pointed toward Hunter. "If this is what you call dangerous, then San Diego could use a few more of these." Applause rippled, hesitant at first, then growing louder. Even Councilwoman Hensley's stern exterior cracked with a small smile. Citizen testimonies followed. Parents who had been guided out of smoke-filled backyards. Elderly neighbors who would have slept through the evacuation if Hunter hadn't forced his way into their yards. Each story painted a picture. Hunter was no threat. He was a protector. Animal control officers. Turner and Cho were present as well. Turner looked conflicted, his salt and pepper beard shadowing a jaw tight with unresolved duty. Cho's eyes softened every time she looked at Hunter, though she avoided making it obvious. When they presented the case for regulation, their voices lacked the conviction they once held. Turner cleared his throat. "Legally, wolf hybrids fall under restricted classification," he said. "But given the circumstances," he hesitated, "something rare for a man known for decisive action. We recommend a conditional exemption." Councilwoman Hensley nodded thoughtfully. "Given the heroic behavior displayed and the owner's willingness to undergo training and comply with safety standards," she said, "I propose an official designation." She turned to Olivia, her gaze steady. "Hunter Brooks shall be registered as the official guardian canine of San Diego Hillside." A hush fell. Then applause erupted. Olivia felt a tremor in her chest. Relief, gratitude, disbelief. She knelt beside Hunter, pulling his massive head close. "You're home," she whispered, voice breaking. The children outside the hall began cheering his name the moment he stepped out. "Hunter! Hunter!" They waved, fearless once more. Hunter stood calmly, tail gently swaying, head high. That evening, as the sun melted into an orange horizon, Olivia sat on her porch step in a fresh red dress. Hunter lay beside her, warm and steady, his fur glowing in the last rays of daylight. She stroked his thick coat slowly, savoring the peace settling over the hillside. "You were just a lost pup that day," she whispered. "Now you're my miracle." Hunter lifted his head toward the sky, releasing a long, soft howl. But this time, it carried no fear, only promise. A vow that no matter how wild he was, he had chosen his place. And it was beside her, in the quiet glow of the San Diego sunset. As Olivia rested her hand on Hunter's warm fur, one truth rose above everything they had endured. Sometimes the miracles we pray for don't arrive with wings. They arrive on four legs, covered in dust, weakness, and a need for love. Perhaps God does not always send his angels from the heavens. Sometimes he sends them in the shape of a lost pup, trembling beneath a trash bin. Sometimes the blessings we seek come disguised as burdens, and sometimes the thing we save becomes the very thing that saves us. Hunter's journey reminds us that in a world full of noise, fear, and uncertainty, there are still moments touched by divine grace. Moments when kindness transforms destiny, when courage lights the way through the fire, and when love turns the ordinary into the extraordinary. And maybe, just maybe, every time we choose compassion, every time we protect the vulnerable, every time we refuse to give up on something fragile, God smiles, knowing His work is being done through our hands. So if this story touched your heart, let it be a gentle reminder. Miracles are real, courage is contagious, and love, true, patient, and fearless, can tame even the wildest storms. May God bless you, your family, and every creature you choose to protect. May He watch over your home just as Hunter watched over Olivia's. And may your life be filled with small miracles that grow into great ones. Before you go, share this story so others can feel the miracle too. Leave a comment about the blessings you've experienced in your own life. And subscribe to the channel so you never miss the next chapter of courage, loyalty, and God's quiet wonders at work. Because somewhere out there, another lost soul is waiting for a heart like yours.